I've been lurking here for quite some time. Not CIA, but worked for a shadow company. MKUltra succeeded and you guys never realized it. Pick is sufficient to explain what I'm implying.
What? That Spike has a fake eye? Nigga, this isn't 1998.
The absolute state of /Paul/. Even if we left breadcrumbs, you wouldn't be able to follow them. Ha ha ha.
Elaborate, bud. Am interested. What do you know of MKUltra? What of the child mind control operations? What of Monterrey, Mexico and the schools for gifted children?
I'm part of a group that's from a shadow agency contracted by the CIA. We've worked on multiple projects related to the MKUltra program. However, it was never revealed to us that we were working on MKUltra. We deduced it once our projects were completed and our agency was decommissioned. There's no threat to me for telling you what I'm going to tell you because the probability of reversing the effects of the program are negligible. It would be akin to reverting 325 million drug addicts into normal human beings. Disclaimer: before you get your hopes high, I never worked on anything classified. Just research on cognitive evolution of human beings.
Please elaborate, man. Want to know more? What do you know of Tavistock? This sounds down their alley. What info can you give us of what you know?
My colleagues and I studied the cognitive evolution of information processing in the human brain. Our goal was to weaponize our understanding of human cognition for information warfare with the Soviets.
Do you mean like you analyzed people's brain chemistry over time as they were exposed to new information and began to understand things better? What do you mean?
No. None of our subjects were human. We only studied the evolution of human cognition by studying non-human species. Our goal was to deduce ways to weaponize our understanding to aid in the information warfare against the Soviets.
Shadow company. Post-sanity. Ha ha ha. Autism.
I lurked on /Paul/ for a long time before I figured out that you guys are big on pop culture and anime. I watched a bunch of popular anime before I began to get the references to Neon Genesis Evangelion. I liked Cowboy Bebop and thus I chose to use it for this thread. No one should be watching animes that you people watch, but I guess it's inevitable.
Please tell what you know. What is the extent of your knowledge? Was your company tied to Tavistock?
Over multiple funded projects, we were able to formulate methods that successfully indoctrinated subjects. Our techniques required subjects to be exposed to particular media to form memories. These memories would then be translated by their brains into behaviors, decision rules, and learning. Most of our results were rejected by the CIA, but at a recent meeting with my ex-colleagues, we realized that our results were correct, and the CIA lied to us. Was your company tied to Tavistock? No. We were not publicly known or registered.
I mean, isn't well known that the brain essentially acts like Bayesian reasoning network? Repeat the same shit to someone over and over and they will rationalize reasons why they believe it. Evidence always overrides reason, because that's the only way to stay rational. This of course is able to be abused by anyone with a significant amount of human hours at their disposal.
No. It is controversial and not agreed upon. This is oversimplifying it. There are various reasons why people rationalize the signals they receive from their environment repeatedly. Your reasoning doesn't work for rebels who go against the grain.
I agree, the way I put it was oversimplified. The way I've been seeing it is that we can essentially separate the analytical parts of the mind from the subjective evaluation parts. They certainly interact, and even override each other in cases of conflict, with the common result being the subjective parts silencing the analytic parts.
This might come as a shock to you, but all our cognition is subjective. At least that's what our research suggested. All human learning is based on a subjective understanding of the environment. The analytical part you referred to is often modeled as a computer that performs operations based on patterns, 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, etc.
So would you say your research focused on leveraging the hardwired biological subjective evaluation circuits to overemphasize certain pieces of culturally derived information and then integrate them into the belief network as wider whole? For example, if there is a biologically ingrained distaste for the suffering of a member of the in-group, therefore if you identify the character in a movie as an in-group, and he looks like he is suffering from something, it won't matter if the suffering is logical or not. You will accept it and then integrate whatever caused him to suffer as something you too believe is bad. Would this be an accurate example of what is happening?
More or less. Except we were not focused on culturally derived information. Rather, we were interested in the methods that were most effective in getting a piece of information, no matter how wrong, into a subject's brain. If you repeated this example over multiple movies, then yes.
How far can this be taken?
Almost contradictory to evolutionary programming. Highly self-interested individuals can be indoctrinated into being socially conscious if they're repeatedly shown movies where the ones who benefit are the ones who help others. Their selfish dopamine circuits rewire thinking the environment has changed, and in order to survive, one must cooperate.
How convincing/complex of a lie do you need to tell for it bypass the average human's filters? I assume it works best with information that one does not encounter in life unless you are looking for it. You are not going to convince people that gravity doesn't exist, because it is always present. But you might be able to convince them that all the power in the government lies under the president and the Congress, and totally forget that the judicial branch will always have final say. This is something I've noticed many movies do, and I always found it to be highly manipulative.
If it's to a 10-year-old, not convincing. If it's to a 20-year-old, more convincing. However, if the 20-year-old has watched movies since he was a kid, then not too convincing. You can extrapolate this to other ages. The bottom line is that the only people you can't truly indoctrinate are those who haven't watched movies for about 40 to 50 years of their lives. Everyone else is susceptible.
Systems of power, and how politics, favors, and social pull really work seem to be completely absent from popular media. I believe that is intentional.
Breadcrumbs.
So SJWs can be deprogrammed by making them watch movies where good people get rewarded?
No, you'll have to show that SJW people are not rewarded. SJW think they're good. So they internalize all the events related to the protagonists in movies. To dismantle SJW, you will specifically have to target the philosophy repeatedly in movies again and again.
Give examples of the experiments and elaborate more. How are your findings being used today?
We studied the evolution of neural processing by analyzing the brain structure of certain species, chimps, lemurs, gray parrot, and many others. How are your findings being used today? They've already been weaponized. It just took my colleagues and me 20 years after the company disbanded to realize it.
So are you a Bill Gates technocratic? Don't they practice this stuff on Africans? Also tell me about the transhumanist propaganda you guys are putting on television filled with occult symbols.
Our techniques have been implemented on all continents. Propaganda with occult symbols wasn't part of my research.
So basically the reason we hear nothing but hamster wheel music in the radio is to condition the worker slaves to be content. Same goes for gangster culture that is being propagated at every turn. Make you content with this degenerate state.
Not exactly, but yes. You're in Germany. Your programs are far more advanced. Make you content with this degenerate state. No, not necessarily.
The thing though, what is the endgame?
Influence behavior and manipulate inherent decision rules of subjects.
1% rich people, the rest worker slaves?
I don't know.
Doesn't that just push them onto a dopamine feedback loop? Setting them into a cycle of using a specific biased memory to see the cognition of the present, thus having them caught in a loop where their memories begin delusionally supplanting the present. It wouldn't manifest if you didn't allow them to be social. Did you use Pavlovian mechanisms?
It manifests if they're not social, or if the people they socialize with are exposed to the same indoctrination. Did you use Pavlovian mechanisms? Yes.
Yup. Then they get into a feedback loop, where they have to share the same delusion, turns into some bastardized telephone game where crazy wins.
Yeah, like another Anon said, can you give an example? If not a direct example, a hypothetical one to help us understand? I am following you, I think. Please explain more, this is fascinating shit. How deep can this conditioning go, and how effective was it? What should we watch out for, and are there countermeasures?
Time to jump into the rabbit hole. Here goes. Our research showed that humans evolved to directly consume information, without any filters. Humans who processed information before internalizing it were more or less wiped out due to their low emotional responses, autism. We realize that emotions are an evolutionary mechanism by which humans make quick decisions, angry, punch someone. However, by making a quick decision, the brain trades information. Thus, emotional responses consider only the smallest feasible picture. A guy punches me, I should punch him back, whereas, logically, emotional responses may not be the best decision. The guy may be the president and I'm now screwed. We discovered that humans never evolved with video movies. Music and art has been around for a while, but movies were a game changer. Humans often confuse movies with reality. You may act in a certain way because Spike, from Cowboy Bebop, did so. Even though you can consciously think that Spike is fictional, in the moment you may try to emulate him. Emulation and emotions were evolutionary instruments developed by humans to survive. Emulate the most famous person so that your chances of getting wealth and power increase, and act emotionally on average because long-term planning doesn't work out for majority of the population. CIA weaponized this via Hollywood movies. Most Americans now have a twisted view of reality. If Hollywood did not exist, then the preferences and ideals of current Americans would reflect their normal lives. An extreme weaponization of our techniques involves indoctrinating people slowly, over time, with movies and fictional characters. Movie franchises, for example, accomplish our weapons very efficiently.
This is a fancy way of saying you wasted a bunch of government money on basic observations. We didn't have TV or movies, but we have had fiction and state-sponsored propaganda for ages. They've even had the idea of different educations tailored towards producing different mentalities for centuries. All you've basically done is say, the things you observe affect your thought process, but in a convoluted, try-hard manner, like you are doing your best G-Man from Half-Life impression. I want to not believe you because I don't want to think the niggers trying to cope the entire world are a bunch of faggots sitting around stroking each other's wannabe intellectual homers, but I've also worked with enough government contractors to think it's entirely plausible. The truth is, bad actors use movies to influence us, but it's not exactly a hard process to understand.
Movies help you visualize. Written and audio propaganda was, and never will be, as effective as visual motion picture. They've even had the idea of different educations tailored towards producing different mentalities for centuries. This is different from what I'm saying. I get it from your point of view, it's indistinguishable from what I said, but if you dig deeper, it's different.
So since I stopped watching movies and shows for like 5 years, I am relatively normal?
No. You can't rewire your dopamine circuits without consciously focusing on reality for an extended period of time and rejecting wrong ideas you've internalized from movies. That is, undoing the effects of movies is like quitting a drug. It takes time and effort.
What if you never really watched that many movies or shows to begin with?
You're still at a disadvantage because others will watch those movies.
So the Marvel and DC franchises are meant to convince people that they need increased diversity in their lives? Or am I going too shallow on that one?
No, they're meant to convince people that those in charge should be idealistic and those in charge should be open to diversity.
So what kind of occult messages are they pushing in these movies? You just said to convince the rulers to be idealistic, meaning?
I don't know about the occult, but movies push for the ideal. To control the narrative, you portray your leaders as ideal, irrespective of whether they are or not. Movies form false memories in our brains, and coupled with a reinforcement from the media, a person who's advertised to be ideal can be elected.
Please teach me. I feel like I fucked up my dopamine system with junk food, video games and TV. I feel my brain is fried like a zombie and every day of my life is the same. I keep telling myself I'll change tomorrow, then tomorrow comes and I repeat the day before. Like if I was stuck in Groundhog Day.
Junk food and video games in general imply that you haven't received rewards for long-term planning. Your life doesn't have too many prospects. I can't really help you in this. It's a choice you'll have to make. Do you want to play the game of life, and play for long-term rewards, or eat junk food and play video games and receive short-term rewards? Neither is wrong, and neither is correct. It's your choice. You have nothing to motivate you to play the long-term game.
Now purple hair ST.A.L.K.E.R makes sense. Is there literature on the kind of work you do? If you have a suggestion, I'll definitely check it out.
We weaponized others' research. We didn't publish any of our work.
Sorry, I meant for the field you came from, not the research you're referring to.
Neuroscience.
This would mean major portions of the media world are controlled or infiltrated. That is astoundingly fucked up, man. I mean, I always figured, but this makes a lot of sense. I have also noticed in the past 10 years news has not just become blatantly editorial, but the old style of professionalism and seriousness is gone. Major news anchors are telling jokes now. News shows enter and exit commercials with pop music like radio stations. What alarms me most is old-time liberals used to have a healthy fear of establishment and government overreach. Now they are fucking Orwellian. Alright man, what else you got? Also, like I said, are there countermeasures? What should be avoided most?
It's like quitting a drug. First you realize what the drug is. The main effect of movies is that they form false memories in your brain. You begin to believe what you see in a movie because your brain hasn't evolved to differentiate, by default, between a movie and reality. To undo this, just be conscious of this, and reject all movie ideas that don't correlate with reality. What should be avoided most? Avoiding movies would be detrimental to you, unless you don't like movies.
Why would avoiding movies be detrimental?
Because others will watch it, and reinforce certain key ideas through social interaction. By not watching movies on purpose, you're painting a bullseye on your head and are exposing yourself to ostracization. A better technique is to watch the movies you want to watch, but learn to differentiate between movies and reality.
What do you mean by false memories? Give me an example. Are you saying that the calm, professional, strong-spoken black presidents in early 2000s movies made us see Obama as that and we said okay, let's vote for him? Why then would we vote for him if the black president was into movies about end of the world? Are you saying after watching a movie, I will then think of a fake memory from my childhood that did not happen? Example being like Mandela effect?
You do something and your brain records the outcome of the activities. A desire to emulate is an evolutionary trait developed in humans to help them gather more resources. You want to emulate heroes, paragons, and leaders. False memories are when you watch movies and your brain internalizes all the events in the movie without realizing it's fiction. So if you watch a movie on King Arthur, your brain mistakes it for reality. You may be in a situation where your brain may think that emulating King Arthur will potentially lead to rewards. Why? Because that's what happened in that movie. The problem here is that the events depicted in the movie are fictitious and most likely don't represent reality. Thus, King Arthur put you in a disadvantageous position. If you hadn't watched it, then perhaps your brain would have chosen a different course of action. Do you want to play the game of life, and play for long-term rewards, or eat junk food and play video games and receive short-term rewards? Neither is wrong, and neither is correct. It's your choice.